Well, U.S. consumers were slightly more confident in the economy in May than they were in April. The Conference Board says that its confidence index rose to 83 from a revised 81.7 in April. And that is, in fact, the second highest reading since January of 2008, just after the recession began. And joining us now is Lynn Franco, Director of Economic Indicators and Surveys at the Conference Board. Lynn, great to have you back on the show.
Good to be back.
83, second highest reading since the recession. Give us an indication of what that number means. Put it in perspective for us.
It's still a little bit sluggish. I mean, before the recession, we had readings of 90 or 100, but we're definitely moving in the right direction, and we've had 3 months now where the readings have been above 80. So it looks like consumers are gaining a little bit of confidence.
But why?
Jobs. That's really the key. Both in the present situation, we saw employment much more positive. They're much more optimistic about the job market and even more optimistic about earning potential.
But is that perception or is that reality? Are we seeing these wage increases? I mean, jobless claims have still been going up. Has this been translating into the workforce, or is it just consumers' perception?
I think it's both. I mean, we have seen a little bit of moderate gains in wages, and we're expecting with a tighter labor force that, employees will be able to gain a little bit and make a little bit of forward movement. And we've had pretty, 3 strong months of back-to-back job gains, which have been relatively strong. We expect this to continue. So I think the fact that consumers are finally seeing strong job growth is really translating into a little bit of renewed optimism.
But the labor force participation rate.
And that's why we're still having readings that are sluggish. They're well above where we were forward.
The jobs number is out June 6th. What are your forecasts for that?
Well, I think we're going to see another month of at least, 200,000 or so. I mean, we don't really see any, loss of momentum, but we don't see a big acceleration either. So hopefully it'll be enough to keep confidence up in consumer spending.
Okay, so how is this confidence translating into actual spending? Are consumers spending more? What kind of items have they been buying?
Well, what we've seen over the last 2 quarters in terms of consumer spending has really been healthcare and utilities. Mm-hmm. Now we expect a little bit of a pickup in durables as sort of, the spring and the resurgence, and the winter is behind us. So homes and home purchases are really going to be, an area where we're going to keep our eye on. And if housing tends to pick up a little bit, then all the furnishings that go into that as well could benefit.
Well, you mentioned housing, and as we saw the Case-Shiller report, the rate of appreciation is slowing down, though housing is up about 10.3% from the same levels last year, still 20% off the highs pre the recession. What is your outlook for the housing market recovery? Are we going to lose momentum there?
We don't expect to lose much momentum, but I think with the Case-Shiller, I think they expect us to end up with maybe single-digit gains. So we don't expect this year to be as strong as last year, but we still expect a little bit of momentum going forward, and we still think it's going to support economic growth.
And what's the Fed's role in all of this? They have indicated, Janet Yellen has indicated, that she's probably going to leave interest rates where they are for the time being. What's your outlook?
Exactly the same. We don't see things changing very much right now, and I think that will, help the overall economic situation, both in terms of consumers' confidence, because there's some certainty in what's going to happen. And we're also seeing a little bit of a pickup in CEO confidence. So I think we're getting both consumers, and businesses moving in the right direction.
What are businesses and CEOs feeling more confident about?
Both the economic conditions currently and also the outlook 6 months down the road. Both in the U.S., actually, they're much more bullish. A little less so with some of the, emerging markets, but still I think we're seeing some positive momentum as well.
Now, one of the concerns for a number of businesses, especially smaller businesses, has been the provisions to provide health insurance as per Obamacare to full-time employees. How has that been impacting hiring?
Well, that's always going to be somewhat of a stumbling block, especially more so for the smaller businesses. And I think that's just something that businesses will certainly acclimate to, seeing this law is not going to change anytime soon.
Do you see that as a deterrent towards hiring?
No, I think it's just a matter of adjustment period. So once we get past this adjustment period and we begin to learn how to deal with these issues, if there's demand, there's going to be a need to hire.
Another issue that may require some adjustment is the proposal to increase the minimum wage. So far, it hasn't passed, but how much of a concern is that for business owners?
I think that's lost a lot of steam, so it's not as great a concern as it was perhaps several months ago. So that's probably falling a little bit down sort of the list of concerns.
And the stock market. We've seen some volatility, a bit of stability, the S&P reaching another all-time high. Are consumers really taking note of what the stock market has been doing this year?
Well, I think that helps the more affluent consumers. So they've really benefited from the increases in stocks. They've benefited from home price increases. Where we really need to keep our eye on is sort of the less affluent consumer. We have seen a little bit of progress here, but confidence there is really going to come back. It's going to be tied into what happens in terms of jobs and wages. So again, it's still a tale of two consumers.
All right, a tale of two consumers. Thank you so much, Lynn Franco. Always great to have you on the show. Lynn Franco, Director of Economic Indicators and Surveys at the Conference Board.